Now, earlier I spoke to former Brigadier General Mark Kimmit, who was the chief U.S. military spokesman in Iraq in 2003 and 2004. I asked him whether now, knowing they were based on false information, he resents the orders he'd been given.
No, I don't. And the reason is because every time you send a soldier over the hill, you are operating on some form of intelligence. All of us that have had to work intelligence and use intelligence knows that there's no such thing as 100% perfect intelligence. So by that measure, every piece of intelligence is flawed, number one. Number two, generals I respect, such as Colin Powell, spent weekends looking at the information provided to him by Langley and came to the conclusion that this was good enough information to substantiate the concerns that were being held against Saddam Hussein and his regime. So it's great to say, if I knew then what I knew now, of course I would have a different decision, and of course I would have a different conclusion. But that's not the way life works.
And so far, the response out of the United States has been muted at best. Are you expecting more voices to come out with any sense of outrage for what's been said today via the Chilcot report?
No, because at this point, 13 years on, Americans have primarily made up their decision whether they agreed with going to war or disagreed going to war. So I don't believe that any opinions are going to change based on this report. We have done a significant number of self-critical reports. We think we've got it. We understand the British have now come up with their own report that doesn't really change the facts on the ground, nor does it really change the conclusions being drawn by the British. They are very similar to what have been drawn by a number of panels back here in the United States. So I can understand why the reaction has been muted.
So what lessons do you think should be learned from this report today?
Well, unlike most who will say the lesson that needs to be learned is closer examination of the intelligence, because I'm persuaded that every intelligence service in the world believed the intelligence at the time. So I'm not focused on the lead up to war. I think the greatest tragedy was the occupation. I think the lessons that really need to be learned are what are the keys to success once the war is over, once the shooting is stopped, until you can actually hand over a legitimate government that represents the people back to the country. And that's where the Iraq adventure probably should take the most criticism.